Welcome back to another episode of the War Room. This is post week 4 now, college baseball that we're chatting. We have the great Dr. Seifert on here. I am on location down in wonderfully sunny Phoenix. Got some great high school action that I'll be checking out. But this is after I was in the command center for a good portion of Friday, watching some Friday Night Lights, some big time studs step up their aces. Great action. Week 4, we did have some ACC stuff, ACC play coming to action. Saif, what were you up to this weekend? What was going on for you for week 4?
I stayed home at the command center and got a lot of just progress towards, what we're going to talk about today. When you're on the road, you're concentrating on just the clubs you're seeing. But when you're at home, you can live stream, you can synergy, you can 643 charts, TrackMan, you can do it all. So I got dozens and dozens of looks at some of the top guys, and a lot of those guys we'll talk about today.
You're the eye in the sky. And I know for me, I always love to go back on the ESPN replays. I love that ESPN has so many games on there. Checking out the replays. Oh, I can go back, rewind that pitch, check out a guy's full outing. Oh, maybe he's getting squeezed a little bit. But I want to start off the show with you because I'm down here. I was over at spring training for a couple of days, saw some action, seeing big leaguers, kind of to recalibrate and see guys of a higher level. But there are a couple things that stood out to me. I saw a bunch of bullpens, went to a big league game, right? And I'm down the line, and so much you see SportsCenter, right? This guy's dotting the corner, doing all these things. I'm in the bullpen watching guys warm up, spraying balls all over, which is normal. Like, hey, not everybody has 70, 80 grade command. Some of these guys, hey, they're just getting loose and throwing these things all over. And then it brought me back to looking at the kid Joey Volchko at Stanford, who huge stuff. We've talked about in the past, big name for that 2026 draft because of the explosive stuff. He had a great outing after kind of starting the year slow. And control command are not like his calling cards, kind of like that throughout high school, but the stuff was so explosive. And I wanted to ask you, like, balancing the risk and reward of, hey, this is the unteachable explosive stuff. We're paying for what we cannot teach. I'm thinking, I got Jacob Mizorowski with the Brewers, Brody Brecht last year, the Rockies took. Huge stuff. How do you balance that when you're looking at a start?
I think Brecht is probably the greatest comparable just because both those guys, they command or control their slider better than their fastball. Both fastballs tickle triple digits, upper 90s at the least. Both are big, strong, tall, athletic guys. And again, they both have plus sliders, and I hate to say they pitch off their slider, but they kind of do for a power guy. So that's a great comparable. And, we had Brecht, we had him, he could have won the top 5 overall picks in the first round if he would have just firmed up the command, right? And I know that's a big ask, but the decision there was reliever, starter, reliever control, starter command. What does he have? Well, he told us what he had. He went 38th overall, right? He just did not put it together. And I think Volchko's in the same boat. Very similar guy. If Volchko can put it together for, let's just say, the last half of the season consistently, then coming out next year, he's a 26 before we get too far along here. Coming out, he's a guy you're looking at like Brecht. Like, hey, he could be a top 5 overall pick in 26. And then you just, follow him through the summer. Hopefully he's with the CNT again. You check on him in the fall. Then obviously the spring will be his final song.
The stuff is so explosive. Again, I look at all these guys because the value of that pick, right? Like if Brody Brecht hits and is like a number 2, number 1 starter, how did this guy go to 38? Well, like here's what you're looking at. There was a risk of him not being that guy, him being like a 7th, 8th inning dude, and then the intrinsic value is not there. What about you're stacking those days, right? He has and I thought Thomas Eager did a great job as pitching coach. Hey, your fastball, you're not commanding it right now. We're not going to throw it. Get ahead with this, build some confidence, and then you can go back to throwing 97, 98. And I think that'll probably help him in the long run. He was throwing 90 and 92 with that slider and flipping in there at will, which is really good. Think about the days, right, for Brecht. Oh, he had a game where he walked 5 or 6 guys. Do you get brought back down to earth? Can you excuse that? Or is that just kind of dealer's choice, whatever the scouting director likes most? Like, hey, it was just don't worry about that. It was an aberration. We'll move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I think if there's 2 or 3 of those amongst your 14, 15 starts, then certainly, they just go out the door, right? If every other one is, 1 or 2 or 3 or, just something more normal or good. But yeah, once you get into like, gosh, he's doing it every third weekend, then it's not there.
Now, we'll talk plenty more about Joey Volchko in the future. We got more than 18 months to deal with him, but there was some amazing action on Friday night. I'm packing, getting ready for stuff. It was awesome to watch. The biggest thing and I had to actually pull up the box score to make sure this was true. Merrick Houston just had 10 RBI against Notre Dame on Friday night. And you could talk some about just that game, his weekend. Are we looking at a chance for a top 5 type pick on Merrick Houston at this point?
I think if he gets to above average power, you can put him in that category and consider him there. But right now, even though I think he has 7 home runs already, 6 maybe for the season. And yeah, he was 3 on Friday night. He was 3 for 4, 2 doubles, a home run, 10 RBI against Notre Dame. So it wasn't like he was doing it against some team just out of the gym. Yep. That kind of reminds you like his first game of the year. I think his first game of the year, he was 3 for 4, 7 RBI and 2 home runs. So it wasn't the first time he went off, but he still has not shown the exit velocities that you need. He's still around 105. 105 is like 35. It's certainly below average raw power. But once it warms up, maybe shows, some 107s, 108s. And if he can hit a few 109s, by the end of the year, you're like, okay, well, his power just ticked up from a high of 105 last year. Now it's at 109. And now I think that eases your mind a little bit when I can project 111, 112 in pro ball if he puts on some more pounds. And now we're 55 raw power, even approaching 60 raw power. That's the type of tools it takes to get drafted in the top 5 overall.
Interesting. But we still like him. Good defender. Probably one of the premier defenders actually at shortstop if you're looking at it from this year's draft class. But you had some board guys from Friday night. How do you say Eloy's first name? I'm so bad. I'm bad like you with his first name. Wahiwa is what I've always heard. Okay. Well, what did he do Friday night and throughout the weekend? Because, he was for me, like the beginning of the year, this guy's the helium guy for me.
Yeah, he had a nice weekend, started with a 3 for 5 and 2 home run Friday evening. So he's just, I'd say he's jumping up boards because he's always been a guy like, okay, yeah, he'd be a great second rounder. But now I actually think he's on the cusp of the first round, kind of knocking on that door. Okay. His defense at shortstop, it's never going to be plus, but it's certainly better than last year when everybody said, oh, he's going to be a second baseman in pro ball. Now I think I'll say it's 50-50. I really don't know for sure, but I think it is coming around to like, hey, yeah, long-term, he could stay at shortstop. He's always had the arm strength, and now you put his plus raw power, even maybe better than plus at time, better than plus. I mean, that's a heck of a shortstop. So he's knocking at that first round door right now.
Those Loys, they don't get cheated down there in Fayetteville. Now put him on the defensive scale, the DeYoung scale. Better than Paul DeYoung?
Yeah, for me. And I saw Loy this fall when they hosted Oklahoma State in that 3-game series. Yeah, he's certainly more advanced than DeYoung. And DeYoung never played shortstop in college. So to put him there would just be like, I don't think anybody said, hey, he's going to be a major league shortstop because he literally struggled at second. He struggled at third. He wasn't even the best left fielder, but he worked hard and he figured it out. So, yeah, Eloy is well ahead of where DeYoung was because DeYoung wasn't even there.
Now, I was watching this next game, Devin Taylor, Indiana went to Penn State, and I think I messaged you that I was getting cold in my office just watching this game in State College. What did you see from Devin Taylor? Again, put him on that because there was a chance for a top 10 pick type deal. Where are we at with Devin Taylor? What did he do this weekend?
Yeah, I believe we had him in our top 20 in the preseason on our draft board. He was number 10 on the D1 baseball college prospect only. Okay. So, yeah, he's top 10 around there, or top 10 overall. Excuse me, not top 10 overall, but in our top 10 of college guys. But, I mean, this weekend, 5 for 10, a home run in the Big Ten opener. It was a doubleheader at Penn State in the cold, as you mentioned. But that's quite a way to get going. I think his first 2-ish weekends, he was pressing. Guys were telling me about his tight, restrictive swing. And I'm like, that's not the same guy that we saw as a prep or that we saw his first couple of years in Indiana. That sounds like a guy that's just tight and pressing. So it was great to see him bounce out of it with a 5 for 10 home run. As you know, I'm going to Knoxville this weekend. Weather permitting, it's supposed to be a high of like 48 there with some rain on Sunday in Indiana. So I might hit Indiana on my way back on Sunday and get some live looks at Taylor. But if it's too cold, too whatever, I'm just going to stay in warm and sunny Knoxville and soak up the third game with the Vols.
Oh, the soft SEC. Look at you, Seif. You're just cruise into your good spot at Knoxville where they treat you very nice.
It is my happy spot. You are correct.
Well, and for good reason. The prospects are churning out of there. What about Trent Caraway? Because you talked about exit velocities, and all these schools do such a great job now with their analytics, right? They'll put out the speed, the spin rates, stuff like that. Damn Analytics, shout out to the Beaver analytics team. Because every game I feel like Trent Caraway has 111, 110, 113. He's kind of and sometimes they're singles. It's like Trent Caraway single, 113. What did he do this weekend for you that caught your eye?
Well, I saw him in week 1 at Globe Life, and I think he was – hey, you use stats all the time. He's maybe like 3 for 11, 3 for 12. So it was okay, but it wasn't like anything earth-shattering. And we all know he's a marginal defender at third base, right? So if you got a marginal bat-to-ball guy who's a marginal defender, you really don't have a top-round pick. There's just too many question marks. I mean, you pay for present skill. You pay for present performance, and you even pay more if there's projection on top of that present package, right? So Caraway really doesn't present a lot of like ceiling with his body type. But he does, his bat can speak volumes if he just doesn't strike out. And man, this weekend he's 4 for 5, 3 doubles on Friday night. He's got his strikeout rate to 20%, which is down from the 30s last year in his injury-riddled season. But he's definitely heading in the right direction. It just wasn't one weekend, but it was just good to see a good player perform well.
Shifting gears, because those hitters on Friday night, obviously good, but what for Friday night's made for? They're made for pitching. That's where the bread is buttered. That's where the heat comes. And Liam Doyle is off to a great start for Tennessee. He's been almost a traveling salesman here, going from Coastal to Ole Miss to now up there in Knoxville. But it's electric stuff. And actually, if you think about it, the last couple of years kind of sprayed some, like those guys we were talking about. What did you see from Mr. Doyle, the New Hampshire native, this past weekend?
Yeah, I mean, he was up to 97, 98 once again. Super live fastball. Hate to give it an 80, but it's at least a 70 fastball live. It not only shoots up, but it shoots to the right. It's just like an invisible that's coming at you at 98 miles per hour, and it's just rising out of the zone. And then he can just break that slider in on those right-hand hitters' back feet. His stats this year are phenomenal. He combined on Friday with 4 other relievers for a no-hitter, which was the first no-hitter of the weekend. And then Blake Gillespie, who's a Georgia transfer. He's now at Charlotte. I didn't realize that. Yeah, he's Georgia transfer now at Charlotte. He had a no-hitter. He struck out 11 and allowed just 1 base run, who I think actually the base runner was actually like erased in a double play or picked off or something, but he actually faced the minimum.
Wow. And that was like a 5-0 game, too. That was a close
strikes game. Over, pounds a zone, 70% rate. His strike rate is over 70%. He's not a high-tier prospect, but he can certainly pitch. He averages 91 on his fastball from the right side. Best pitch is a low 80 slider. So Gillespie and no-no. Those are both Friday. And then we had another no-hitter on Sunday by Drew Horn, obviously the Sunday guy at Middle Tennessee State. The Friday guy at Middle Tennessee is their prospect, but Drew Horn, obviously, 9 innings, 2 walks, 13 strikeouts on Sunday. So, yeah, a trifecta of no-nos on this in week 4.
Let me ask you, and I know you're going to see Liam Doyle, so we'll probably break down a lot more next week. The other Tennessee kid that got traded from the White Sox to the Red Sox has a chance to be Cy Young this year. What's his name? No, not Sale, the other one.
I'm sorry. Yeah. One of our favorite guys, and my name is escaping me right now. We had him 10, 15 spots higher than
Rhett the Jet. I need Rhett the Jet on this guy. I just was watching, not Dyke. Anyway, I was going to ask you like how far apart those two are, because the fastball, slider, the electricity. I guess you'll see it this weekend. Maybe you know what? Let's save that one for next week. We'll save Liam Doyle and the comparisons and his rise for next week. Let's talk a little bit more about Saturday, because it was a really good matchup. Stanford, UNC, Luke Stevenson. What were we getting out of Luke Stevenson? Are things warming up for him as well?
Yeah, really. He was one I was really looking at. He started off to maybe just a lukewarm 260, 280, somewhere in there start. And like, hey, what's wrong with this guy? Because I like his swing. He has plus arm strength. He's a plus defensive catcher. And if he can hit and he's got power, he has plus raw power. I mean, you have definitely a top 10, 12 overall type of guy there. I hate to say he's Joey Bart, but he's better than Joey Bart was as an amateur, or was for me. Stevenson is evaluated better than I had Joey Bart in that draft year. Now, Joey Bart ended up going like 4 or 5 overall, well ahead of where I had him. And Joey Bart has made the big leagues, but that's where I hold Luke Stevenson in esteem. Like, I think Luke Stevenson is a top 5, 7 overall type pick. And for him to only be hitting like 260 was kind of head scratching. So yeah, I checked on him, and hey, 4 for 4, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs on Saturday against Stanford. So it wasn't like, again, not like it's this team just out of the gym who's coming in there. It's freaking Stanford, right? So yeah, Luke was really good. Like his swing. There's a good average in there with some power in there. It's just not, he's not just selling out for pop, and he's not also just selling out to make contact. It's a nice, really balanced swing.
It's interesting when you have these guys that draft. You're talking about Devin Taylor, Luke Stevenson. If they get off to that slow start, you roll into conference, and that stress and pressure can come on quickly, right? Hey, we don't have cupcakes anymore. Every game matters. We're going into Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm going to be pitched to. There's not like the warm-up period of the first 2 weeks where they're letting guys build out. I might get a 3rd or 4th at bat. But for him to come out ACC play against a really good Stanford team who has some big arms and do some good stuff, it's got to be promising. But also something from the scouting side where you separate those first 4 weeks, right? He gets rolling, and it's like, the weather was cold in the Carolinas. You, at least to me, like, you forget about that. You remember the summer, you scout those tools, and now he starts building his way back. These other guys on here, because I want to give them a shout out from the Saturday stuff. Chris Arroyo, who Jason Burton, our scout, in one of our scouts in Virginia, does an awesome job. Outstanding scout, crushes the DMV area, like incredible. He was all over Arroyo in the fall. Like, the amount of times he told me, and he's probably saying, if he's listening right now, I told you all about this. What do we got in Chris Arroyo? Because when I saw it was pretty physical, the bat speed, like there's power there, but he had been that JUCO bounce back transfer, and now he's at UVA. Yeah,
and Arroyo actually started at Florida, so he was a freshman when Cags was a sophomore, maybe, or freshman. Anyway, he was there with Cags. Yeah, what's that?
That's a lot of lost balls in BP.
Yeah, for sure. That's before Donet got there, so at least they balanced it out a little bit. But Arroyo's left. At the beginning of the year, he was slated to go in the rotation, either in the 2 spot or the 3 spot. He hasn't really pitched much. He's mostly been just playing first base. But Saturday, he's 5 for 5, 2 home runs, 6 RBI. He's another plus to better raw power guy. So he had started maybe a little slower than expected because he had a huge fall. But at least he's on the right track at Virginia. They got to get that whole team on track, but at least he's starting to get going. So hopefully he can carry them before, the good bouts and the other guys get rolling as well.
Yeah, they got to get the arms healthy for them. That'll be a big deal as those guys get going on. What about you? Got Anthony Ianson on here, threw really well, 15 punchies as LSU got ready for this upcoming first week of SEC play.
Yeah, Ianson, he stood out to me at this USA C&T this summer. I'd never seen him before. He was a West Coast guy. Was he at Irvine, I believe, before?
No, he was not at Irvine. He was at, this is really bad because I'm Captain Big West. I don't know if it was UCSD.
San Diego?
It might have been UCSD.
So I'd never seen him before, and then all of a sudden I'm like, bam, there he is, like just throwing 96 with ease, with a plus hammer. I'm like, okay. And then later you hear, he's transferring to LSU. So I just expected big things just based on what he showed me on that a couple of those hot days in Cary, North Carolina in the summer. But 7 innings, 15 strikeouts. Again, it wasn't against the greatest competition. I'm looking forward to seeing him, this weekend in SEC competition. But just a guy that we may have had a little higher than others, and finally went out and did some of the things that we were expecting him to do.
Dude, handle business, get ready for the SEC. He looks like a low pulse guy, puts the strikes on there when he needs to, confident. This was the game, and Seif, you have in our note sheet, I was looking for all weekend, and I missed Saturday, so I was eyeing in like, where is this kid throwing? And then I checked in on Sunday. I was like, did this Salina kid even throw for the Bonnies? St. Bonaventure. For those of you out there who are listening who do not know it, this kid, Michael Salina, throws 100 at St. Bonaventure's, at St. Bonaventure, the Bonnies. Shout out to Woj, the new AD. But he went up against Marcus Phillips in Knoxville. What was it like? Because I completely missed it. I'm going to have to go rewatch. Tell me what was going on with those two.
I was locked into that one. That was the kind of the power couple, I call it. Both guys going to touch. I was thinking both guys are going to throw 100. Now, both guys threw 98. I think Phillips actually got up to 99, but I was hoping to see triple digits out of Selena because that's what we heard in the fall. The fall was 101, 102. Did not see that. But the thing that really impressed me with Selena is he wasn't just some rock thrower. It wasn't just some kid up just throwing as hard as he possibly can, spraying the zone. He had some feel behind what he was doing. I mean, he wasn't a one-pitch guy. He located his fastball well enough, hit a tight breaking ball, threw for strikes, occasional changeup. So what I saw with Selena was a potential professional starter. So really impressive guy. Yeah.
So how important, like I was saying going into the week, like this was the week for him to make money, right? Like you're at St. Bonaventures.
He did that. Yeah.
And I love, like, this is like, to me, luck is when opportunity meets preparation. That dude that has the opportunity going to Knoxville, you're going to face the best offense in college baseball. Here you go, buddy. And it sounds like he did a nice job, handle his business. Is that a guy who could potentially go early day 2, or are you thinking late day 1? Like what was the look for you?
Yeah, it's tough to take, just how the draft is shown, it's tough to take a smaller college arm in the first, second round. You know, usually those guys start kind of trickling third, fourth. Well, not usually, but I would say Selena right now is a 3rd to 5th rounder. And okay. I don't think you might. And what I saw, probably closer to the 3rd than the 5th, but now he's just got to continue to do that for the next 10 weeks. But I was really impressed. I kind of had him in the 6th, 10th round, somewhere in there, you know, just watching the video and reading what I'd read. But yeah, I mean, he's certainly an early to mid day 2 type of guy.
Interesting. We're really
strong
excited.
Body, 6'3", 205. So he's put together pretty good. His arm works good enough. His delivery's good enough. And I hate to go negative train ever on my Vols, but I will say many pitches, Selena's zone was a lot tighter than those in the home uniforms. So,
oh wow,
yeah. And my TrackMan confirmed that the you know, you're sitting there watching the game, right? Oh, well, that's close. Then you go over the TrackMan strike zone, and right there on the edge should have been a strike, called a ball. I'm not saying it was like a dozen times, but it's certainly 3, 4, 5 that I noticed.
Well, the Salinas family is definitely yelling at their podcast right now and saying, "Yes, you got his back, Seif. We know what you're doing." So it's.
And one would have been strike 3, 3rd out, no runs scored, but called a ball. And then I think next ball was put in play for, I don't know, it was an error or a base hit, or it was something, and 2 runs scored. So it was kind of like that one pitch equaled 2 runs. But again, I mean, it's part of the game. Guys miss pitches. It just seemed a little off there for the first few innings.
It always happens like that. I want to wrap up with, before we move in some left-handed segment, Maximus Martin. And I'm only bringing this up because I'm a biased Jersey guy, and he is a former Super 60 kid from New Jersey, kind of bounced around a little bit. Was actually, Seif, I was going to send this over to you guys, was supposed to be at Arkansas, but some roster stuff, he saw like, oh, this guy's coming back, and went up to Kansas State. And I thought it was a great decision. Hey, go get yourself out there. Go play. What did you see from Max Martin this weekend?
Yeah, I think he actually bounced to Georgia State in between, right?
Between
State. Yep. Yeah, I think so too. But I mean, you know, coming into the year, you know, talented guy, right? Obviously, Super 60 has some tools and a good player. But man, over the weekend for Kansas State, 8 for 12 with 5 home runs. Half a weekend, Maximus Martin. So he was on the drive-by. If you got some time, drive-by, take a look at Kansas State and Martin. But now he's definitely on the radar as a guy you just need to go see. So
let's put him on the radar of the MLB Draft League. Max Martin, local kid from New Jersey, would be a great Draft League attendee.
We'll send a note.
Let's go over, because this is when we were planning for the show here. I really want to talk some left-handed starters and some guys around the country. We obviously talked about Liam Doyle. We're going to save kind of the full breakdown of him until afterwards, when we learn who this future 2020 or 2025 Cy Young for the Red Sox will be.
Garrett Crochet.
Garrett Crochet. We got his name. Good job, Seif.
It all comes to me. It's just slower now. It just gets.
Well, there we go. I'm glad we could extend the talk to get to the point of you knowing the name. You know I won't know the name. Jamie Arnold did not pitch this weekend. It sounded like it was from illness. What have you with that? In his place, it looks like Vellini came in and just it's the Florida State's become like kind of a pitching factory. Look.
Yeah. The funny thing about Florida State is they've always had good left-handers, right? I mean, you just even the way back, they've always had all those lefties. This year, they're all left-handed rotation, and so is Texas A&M. You know, two of the better clubs in the country, and they're all left-handed rotation. So that's kind of the fun part. But yeah, Arnold was sick on Friday, had an illness. The rumor was that they were just gonna have some fun and hold him back and start him against Florida tonight. Ooh. So I'll be locked in to that Florida State game here in 1 hour to see if that is true. I don't think it's going to end up be true. He'll just make his normal start this coming Friday, ACC play. But in his place, Joe Vellini, South Florida transfer, fourth-year junior. I saw this fall down in Tallahassee when Alabama came to town. And Vellini was good for me then. He was even better on Friday. 7 innings, 6 hits, 1 walk, 11 punchies. And their number 2, their Saturday guy right now is a transfer from Ole Miss. So Ole Miss not lost. They didn't lose 1 star lefty from last season. They lost 2 in Wes Mendez, who's a sophomore, 26 eligible, and he follows it up on Saturday, and he's a top 3-round pitching prospect as well.
Former 2A, which is what I love about him. You should have seen his top-tier Roos team in the past, that Aiden Miller, all these guys, the Friday guy at Florida. He was on that team. Peterson. They were all pitching on the same team. Landon Brutus. Oh, my gosh, that team was so good. Ryan Prager, you got, and you talked about the A&M having all the lefties. I've been not blown away, but like there are certain, I guess I stay attuned to like the mental aspect. Like Ryan Prager coming back to school after being such a high pick, it's a difficult thing, right? You have to live up to the fact that I was this high, and it puts a lot of pressure without people knowing it. Like, oh man, he came back, gets his NIL, does all this stuff. There's still a ton of pressure on this guy to be what he was last year. And it seems like he might even be better right now.
Without a doubt, the numbers are still there. And I did compare his velocities and his whiff rates and all that kind of thing. So his numbers are nearly identical. Well, I'm sorry, his stuff is nearly identical. But, I mean, his results, a .38 ERA in 23 innings, 27 strikeouts already. So the .38 ERA, that's obviously in, he's not going to maintain that. But I did break it down the stuff, and the stuff is very similar. But to your point, yeah, it's very difficult to come back and try to replicate an all-American type of season that you had, to turn down that type of money and come back and do that and continue to post. But with him specifically to the draft, it's going to be hard for him. He was drafted, I think, 80
third round,
yeah, 81st overall or something. That's about just what he is. He may sneak into the top 75 or even a little higher if he takes a deal, but just what his stuff is only pays so much, So, but it's fun watching. That is for certain watching.
Let me ask you, because Quinn Matthews. Do you remember Quinn Matthews at Stanford?
I do. That he was one of my favorite guys in that draft, by the way. Yes. Saw him in Oklahoma. I said, I don't know what he is, but I know he's a big leaguer. Yeah.
And so compare him to like Prager, because he was there for, this guy's old. And now like he may break camp with the Cardinals. He was minor league pitcher of the year last year. And hey, he's old. He's this. And in the end, like, yeah, he's a big leaguer. So like, how different are he and Prager value wise now? And does Quinn Matthews, what he's done, help Prager's value looking ahead to the draft again?
That's a fair question. I think it's a great comparison. I think for me, the only difference is Matthews had a much better breaking ball than Prager. Prager has a better changeup. And Prager has a usable slider, but you're talking about a lefty throwing about the same speed, but one has a better breaking ball, the other better changeup. I would probably always opt for the Matthews and the breaking ball than the changeup, but Trevor Hoffman closed games for how many 15 years, Hall of Fame without a breaking ball and a changeup. I know he's right-handed, but I think you get my point. A really good changeup.
Yeah, you sound like me. You like the breaking ball. That's good. That's a good thing. What other lefties were you eyeing, and what other stuff can we go from these southpaws?
Well, yeah, I just went with the whole Texas A&M rotation, right? Miles Patton is their Sunday guy. He's a transfer from Long Beach State. Justin Lampkin, he's a 6'4" guy that just floods the zone. His fastball, I hate to say it's only low 90s, but it plays above that because he has like nearly or over 7-foot extension. So it just gets on hitters quick with his long length. But they are both good this past weekend. think
Is
Pat.
Lampkin this year or is he next year draft?
No, they're both this year. It's
Okay.
an all 25 lefty rotation.
I really liked Lampkin in high school. It was always like, oh, that lefty, can it click? It has to make those jumps. So it's good to see what he's got going there. What about kind of the big name, Cade Anderson, J.D. Thompson, who's been good at Vanderbilt, your guy Ben Jacobs out at ASU, and then another Zane Adams, who's at Alabama.
Yeah, Adams and Jacobs are still getting their feet wet. I think Adams had a good weekend. What did he do? He had his best start of the year.
Okay.
Got to find my notes here. So he went 6, gave up 1 hit, didn't walk anybody, and struck out 6 against Gonzaga. Good outing, obviously. Zane Adams, he had been kind of slow starter-ish. He went 6, 5 hits, no walks, no runs, 10 punchies. So they both had their best outings of the year, week 4. Cade Anderson, J.D. Thompson, they've been solid from start to finish, not as dominant as the Pragers and the Liam Doyles, but certainly very effective for their clubs on Friday nights. They are kind of what we thought they are. They're both second round-ish type of guys.
Yeah.
We were high on Jacobs. We probably had Jacobs second, third round, somewhere in there. He hasn't pitched like that, but I think the best is yet to come with him. And Zane Adams, I think we had him third, fourth round. He looked like a second rounder this fall. He added that cutter, and I haven't seen him yet this spring. But if he's got that cutter going, then he is a second rounder. If not, then he's probably more like we had, more of a fourth round guy. But Jacobs and Adams both had really good weekends.
All right, take us up to East Lansing, because this is a kid I've been following since high school. He was one of the sleeper favorites in that draft class. Like, who's going to hit? Multi-sport kid, small town athlete who's been playing all sorts of other sports who nobody had heard of. I remember trying to get him to the Super 60, but I think he was playing some other sports. Tell us about Mr. Zerwa. Is that how we're saying it?
Yeah, Zerwa is what they were saying.
Okay.
Zerwa is what they were saying on the live.
We'll get it right in the future, Joe. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, he's more like him. Don't get me wrong. He'll top at 95. He'll sit 92, 93. He's got the really good high spin rates in the 25, 2600s that people are looking for. How he does it is a little different. He sets up closed, like the hitter can literally see the numbers on his back, so he's that far closed.
Okay.
He'll land to the plate. He'll land closed as well, not like super closed, but he'll land closed enough to create a little deception. Good angle. He's got the 3/4. So he's got that good angle coming into righties. And again, he'll sit 92, 93. Best pitch is the changeup. It's a plus changeup. Wow. The breaking ball, I hate to say barely usable, but the breaking ball I saw on Friday against UAB was barely usable, but he's mostly a fastball changeup. Long leverage, 6'8", got a lot going for him. I think at the beginning of the year, I think we have him pegged 5th, 6th round area. He's probably pitched his way up to the 3rd round at this point.
Excellent.
He struck out 41 guys already against just 6 walks. He's 4-0 with a .7. So he's getting it done. I think your East Lansing-ites start Big Ten play this weekend. So a little different than his first 4 weekends.
It's and a kid like that who's playing multiple sports, small town, still has some potential development. I would think the area guy, if he's in there tight, checking in on like what was going on in Ohio, where is he at developmentally. And we can talk a little bit about this, the player development aspect, but you're talking about how he comes set, probably trying to get that big coil action. He's closed. There's a lot of stuff where maybe it's not the super efficient linear pattern. And the differential of handing off as a scout, right? Whoever drafts him, Michigan State, you're sending him off. And say he had struggles or gets the player development of the minor league system. All right, no, we need to get more linear, do this, this, and this. The disconnect at times from those two sides where it's like, hey, no, that's what he did good. Stop turning him into this guy. How much had you ever seen stuff with that when you were, cross-checking, you were scouting area stuff? I know talking to guys all the time, like that can be a frustration. And I don't think the mainstream, any draft fans understand, like, hey, once you scout and sign this guy, you may not even talk to him again. Like you move on, you hand him off to player development, and you pray to God that they turn him into a big leaguer. But like, there's times where they can say, "Hey, no, we're going to change your slot." Whoa, dude, I just got $1 million not to change my slot.
Well, the best clubs at scouting development have scouting departments and player development departments that communicate with each other, right? So like things like that don't happen, like you mentioned. Like, hey, we're changing our arms a lot. We're like, no, we just gave him $1 million or $2 million, whatever. So the best ones are always in constant communication, respect each other's opinions, right? And just the goal is to make the player better, not for this coach or that coach to put their name on the player so this coach or that coach can get the next promotion, right? The best ones just work in unison, and they develop prospect after prospect into big leaguers. So with all that said, Zerwa, he is a case where there's not a lot of leg drive at all. Like the back foot just comes off the rubber, right? There's not a lot of posting on the front side. It's firm, but there's not a lot of explosion there, right? Combined with his athleticism that you talked about, multi-sport athlete, the size, the arm is loose. There's a lot to like down the road with this guy. So, but to my point, there wasn't a lot of like present, right? You're not paying a lot for third. I mean, for me, I'm paying third round money with him right now. Now, if he keeps going, develops a breaking ball, maybe I just saw him on a bad breaking ball day, he can spin the fastball, right? 2600. He can probably spin the breaking ball, but it just doesn't have shape or teeth or anything at this point. But again, you follow these guys all year, and maybe you have a second rounder by the end of the year because he certainly has a lot of the other things we're looking for.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I still harp on the like sending him off. Like I love the idea of like having a plan for a guy like that. Like, here's where we see you. This is why we're going to make these adjustments, because if you can get this breaking ball to here, it'll allow you to do this, this, and this. And I think most organizations are doing a great job with that. Just being around the teams now, it's like they have so much structure, individualization of plans for these pitchers, which is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, he reminds me of, it's a Michigan State guy to Michigan State guy, but it's an Illinois prep versus a Michigan prep. But he reminds me a lot about Mark Mulder, just a tall, I hate to use the word raw, but just a tall lefty with a ton of potential. And I don't even know if you remember Mark Mulder, but I was with the A's when Mulder was our first round pick. But he was a super athletic guy too, and he turned out to be a pretty good big leaguer for a number of years. So there's definitely a lot to like with this latest Michigan State lefty.
It's not. Now you have a few more guys on here just to kind of wrap up with Jared Spencer of Texas, who kind of went from Indiana State. He's jumped up. Jacob Frost has had an incredible start. Man, I love what Kansas State has done. Austin Waite's one of my favorite guys, does a great job evaluation, recruiting coordinator. Hunter Elliott at Ole Miss there. I think I talked to you about Hunter Elliott versus Pico Cone at Mississippi State, maybe squaring those two off, Ole Miss versus Mississippi State. It seems like a fairly solid, depthy southpaw group. Would you say that as we're starting to see some depth?
Without a doubt. I think if you pick one demographic, it is left-handed pitching in this year's draft. It is just, we'll have an article coming out tomorrow on Prep Baseball about the rising lefties. And there's so many good lefties. And the other thing, there's so many lefties that are supposed to be good or could be good that we don't even talk about. So I think there's 15 in the article, and there's another easy dozen that just haven't got going yet this year that should. I mean, you got the electric arm guy that went from Alabama to Georgia.
Alton Davis.
Thank you. Alton Davis, the second or the third. Yeah, I mean, like guys like that, the lefties that throw upper 90s that just haven't put it together yet, but they've got value. They could be really, really good players. So,
hey, I'm going to give you a little insight into something that I'm working on this whole spring. There's some depth in the southpaws and the prep side too. There's some really good ones. It's the more I've gone throughout, and we'll talk about these guys as we have the draft board coming out in a week now. So next week, I think March 20th. There are some really good left-handed arms who have showed out early on this season, have elevated themselves, have moved into that day one consideration, which I am very excited about. You sifted with these guys. There's a lot of value on the board, Seif. Team's got a lot of picks, lots of money to spend. But I'm excited to talk about it all spring with you. This was week 4. I know we do have the draft board update coming. We'll have a mock draft headed your way. For those of you who listen to this now this week, I believe the draft date, I have to check my dates out. It's all become one day, Seif, throughout this spring. But
I think it's a desert air on you right now, Shooter.
You heard me this morning. It's like very dry out here. My Pacific Northwest. I need the moisture. But gorgeous out here. We will have the updates to the draft board, positional breakdown, especially from the prep side. horizontal build out, because 1 through 500 makes absolutely no sense when you're putting it on the board. You need to have that horizontal build out, right, Seif?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
So all of that and more will be coming. In the meantime, if you need some gear, I know I have my my St. Patty Day Prep Baseball shirt. It's green. It's an incredible logo. Shop.prepbaseball.com. Be sure to check that out. Some awesome stuff over there. And Seif, until next time, enjoy SEC opening weekend. We'll see you guys at the ballpark.